Stay tuned, we're going to show you how we built our country fence out here on Piney Grove. Welcome to Piney Grove. I'm Brad.
I'm Deb.
And this is our 5th video that we're putting out concerning the development of our 20 acres here in Northwest Florida. But when we bought this property, the brush was completely out to the telephone pole that's behind us. And there was no front fence here to speak of, except for an old T-post style fence with some rotten wire on it. So we thought a lot about what type of fence that we wanted, and we looked at fences in the area. We wanted more of that country style round post, and so we went with an 8-inch post. So we figured if we're gonna put in the expense, let's go ahead and set it up for a 3-rail or a 4-rail. So we put our post at 8-foot intervals. We're gonna talk about the property along this front fence line, or along the front part of our property, the north part of our property, and how we found it, how thick it was, and all the underbrush, and kind of walk you through the steps we took for the fence that we have now. It was largely a do-it-yourself project by do-it-yourself us too, but we did have some forestry mulching first. We had the bulldozer come in and kind of clear the path a little bit, and then some dirt put in some low areas. But after that, we tackled the job ourselves, and it was quite a big job. To give you some perspective on what we bought, you can see Deb down there by that telephone pole. And if you take and sight down there to the next telephone pole behind her, there was brush out to the left, past the telephone pole, all the way down this fence line, all the way up until the pines. It was thick, it was overgrown. There was a very old T-post fence there, and it had very old cattle fence on it. And we went from that to this fence. Okay, we're gonna walk and talk backwards here a little bit, so this should be fun. It's not an interstate or anything, it's a county road, but it does have some traffic, as you see as we're recording. And we just wanted front fence security on our property, and we didn't have it with the fence that was here. So the more we cleared out here with the forestry mulcher, and myself with the bush hog and pruning shears, and just different ways to clear, the more that we were exposing our front property line. So we wanted to get a fence up as soon as possible. We actually contacted a couple of fence companies or local folks that do country fencing, farm fencing, and talked to them about what we wanted. And it seems that what they had in mind was not what we had in mind. We wanted fence posts that were 8 inches in diameter and put in every 8 feet. And the standard is more like a 4 or 6 inch post put in every 30 feet. And it seems like nobody wanted to dig the holes. This clay soil, especially when it's dry, is really, really hard to dig. It's really, really hard to pound post. So we were faced with that, to have a fence that we didn't want, or to put in the fence that we wanted by ourselves. So we put it in ourselves. And it was no small task. I'm showing the 12-foot gate opening now. We went with a 12-foot gate, and that's turned out to be adequate for all heavy equipment. We've had bulldozers come in here, excavators, different construction type folks, and they've all been able to make the turn and come in here. And that was the reason why we went with the funnel versus a 90-degree angle on each side of our road. We didn't want equipment to have trouble going in and out of our property. You can see they come with these L-shaped bolts, and I elected not to use the lag bolts. I used a through bolt, so I drilled all the way through the post, and I'll get my welder to weld the nut on, but for right now I drilled all the way through the post, and then I have this space here, and I can adjust that nut if the gate doesn't reach the other side. So 12-foot gate plus this gap plus whatever gap you have on the other side. You got to think about that, because once those posts are in, they're in. You don't want to redo them. So over here, I didn't want the gate to hit the post. I wanted it to be on the inside of the post, and I'd put a little bumper here, so that's what I did. That way I have the full width of the gate, and this would be the long side of the fence. So we talk a lot about dirt movement in these first few videos of our property, and one place that we needed a lot of dirt was right here. The fence where it is now was about, the bottom of it is about where the old fence was, but all that dirt that's under there now we put there, and it was essentially washed out because the water flows down the side of the public road and comes onto our property, to our pond area, in this low section right here. So we had all this filled in with dirt from our pond dig, and we put in this culvert pipe. So in the last video you saw us talk about the pond and how water gets into our pond from the public road. Well, this is one way. We get a lot of water through this culvert. Okay, so we're here on the west end of the fence, and the fence is approximately 650 feet long. There it is behind me. All right, Deb's gonna do her famous swim move and move to the other side of me. But it's a challenge to get a fence that long straight. So the way that we achieved that was we set our corners first, and we measured off of the county road. I think the county right of way is like 30 feet or something like that, maybe 20 feet to the power pole, and then an X amount of feet in from that. But whatever that dimension was, we set this post right here behind me first. And we used a horizontal bracing system, and that other leg goes down the west end of our property. So once we wrapped our mind around the fact that we were going to have to build this fence ourselves if we wanted it, installed in a timely manner in the way that we wanted it built, we had to gather the supplies, we had to buy the equipment. I already had a tractor, but we didn't have a post hole digger. So I ordered one online from palletforks.com, great company to deal with, delivered directly to my house in a crate. I put it together, and I came out here and I dug the holes. I had to put in about 90 posts. It took me about 3 days to drill those holes. Some of the holes went in very easy in the sandy soil up here, kind of where the camera is, but farther behind me, as you get to the entrance to the property, the soil is a lot more clay. It's a lot more dense. And it was really dry when I started digging the holes in the clay. So the post hole digger would actually just sit on top of that clay and just grind. And I bet 10 or 15 holes took me 30 minutes or more per just to drill the holes. I drill it down a couple of inches, and it would polish the clay in there. And I would have to take a post hole digger or a metal pick, and I'd have to loosen up that soil until the post hole digger could get more of a bite. Some of the post holes were a challenge. Some were easy, they drilled real quickly. Some were in this deep red clay that we have here, and it was like going through concrete. I got all 90 drills, and then enlisted Deb's help to come out here and put in these monstrous 8-inch poles. And we did it, I think we did it in 3 days, maybe 4 days. And that does not include the corners. That doesn't include the line post that I put in to establish the straight line. That doesn't include the hole drilling or the funnel or installing the gate behind me. And stringing the wire was 1 or 2 days. I think 1 day of stringing it and then a day of stapling it. Maybe 8 or 10 days involved in this fence. But we got it put in. We would work, we did it in the winter time.
We did it on Christmas Eve.
And as Deb likes to remind me, I had her out here working on Christmas Eve, but I can think of nothing more romantic or festive than being on your property, and putting in fence posts. It seems like a great thing to do, and I just wonder why she didn't thank me for that wonderful Christmas present. So the process for putting the posts in line and keeping them straight is we use a string. So we had a couple rolls of string, and we would string about 100 feet or so of fence and pull that string really tight. And we would put the post in the hole, make sure it was in line, make sure it was plumb, and then have it just barely touching the string, or about a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch off the string. And using that method, we were able to put in all the posts, and they're as straight as I've ever seen a fence, and I don't just say that because I put the fence in, but when you sight down the fence line, it's pretty darn straight. So we're proud of ourselves for getting that in. Every post is either 5 to 5 foot 1 inch tall. So we put in red brand wire or red top wire, sheep and goat fencing, because eventually we want our animals to be free range out here to some degree. It's 600 feet or more of fencing, so we use like 2.5 rolled. I'd never put up rolled, 4 foot tall fence. And so we had to buy some tools to stretch it. We used a tractor to stretch it. We were stretching it so tight that as we were using the come along to pull the fence wire, if the tractor brakes weren't set, it would actually pull the tractor towards the fence. So we got it as tight as we could. In hindsight, we would have got it a little tighter.
as discussed, putting in the post was challenging enough because besides him pre-drilling the holes and then us setting the poles and having to pull the poles out if they needed to have more dirt taken out or more dirt put in, it was a very time-consuming process and a very, very exact process as well. But when it came time to actually installing the fence, it comes in these big rolls, and I'm not that big, so I'm no help in picking them up. So we would put them on the ground, and we would literally kick the roll down the fence line, and then we would get on each side of the fence, the two of us, just the two of us. All of this was done with just the two of us. We would get on each side, and then we would have to hoist up this big long stretch of fencing because we didn't cut it down and stand it up and then start tacking it to the post. So no process of this was simple.
Like I said, it was a learning experience. We hadn't done it before, so we bought a few tools, and they were simple tools. Our fence stretcher was, it was bought from Tractor Supply, but it was two 2x6s that screw together with bolts. And it's just not real. It's kind of cumbersome to use. And then we used a tractor to come along. But everything's just awkward. It requires, maybe two experienced men can do it in some sort of rhythm and make it look like a dance. But we
were not dancing.
We were not dancing.
We were fumbling.
It was very awkward, but we got it done. I think even one time, because you want the red top of the wire to the top, I think one time we did it wrong and the red was on the bottom. So when we flipped it, the wrong side was up. So we had to reflip it. So yeah, we definitely look like amateurs.
And we got it done quickly. I mean, honestly, not the post or anything, but actually pulling the wire was actually as awkward as it was. And the first time we've done it, we got it done fairly fast.
Okay, one thing that I mentioned was the H bracing on the corners or the horizontal post on the corners and that type of bracing. And there's plenty of ways that you can do it, but I'm going to explain to you the way that I did it. So we have our 8-inch post here, and you also notice this isn't on a corner, so we'll get to that in a minute. But we have our 8-inch post here, and then I took a 6-inch post and cut it with either a chainsaw or a skill saw, whatever I had at the time, to make it fit in between. And then I through drilled through here with a 3/8 drill bit, and then I got long galvanized nails or spikes. And so I spiked one side, then I set the other side with a level, and then I spiked that side. And then I ran what's called bracing wire. And you can see this bracing wire is loose. As I walked up to it today, I noticed that it was loose and it needs tightening. And but there's many ways that you can run bracing wire. But the biggest thing that I put in my mind of how to run bracing wire is, I imagine that wire right there is like a Pac-Man or a mouth. So I imagine that this wire here is like an alligator or a Pac-Man, and that they want to eat the long side of the fence. So when you run your bracing, that's the way I remember it, and I've never seen it explained anywhere like that. But when you run your cross diagonal, you want that side going to the long side of your fence, because that's where the most stress is on your fence. On this bracing wire, and again, mine is loose here, but there's a couple ways you can tighten it. And some people will put like a stick in between here and then twist it and then tie that stick to their fence. And if that bracing wire gets loose, they'll untie that stick and spin it. I personally don't like that look, so I went with these fence tighteners that are ratchet, and you can put adjustable wrench on them or some socket and make them tight. Now obviously this one needs tightening, but that's the beauty of it. You can come along here and tighten it, and that'll keep your fence from getting loose. So that's the way I did H bracing on all my corners. So on every corner of this property, the horizontal bracing, I guess H stands for horizontal, the horizontal bracing is like that, with the alligator facing one way and the alligator facing the other way to keep the fence tight. Okay, so another thing that I'd like to talk about is, like, we ended the wire here. This was the end of the roll of wire. And a lot of people will wrap that wire all the way around the post, but we didn't. We just put 2 sets of staples in the wire to hold that end. The better way to do it is to wrap the wire all the way around the post, but this is held and stayed tight. So the way that we wanted our funnel to look, I couldn't put this H brace on the funnel. So that H brace really should have went right here so that you could keep this whole fence line completely tight. But we want to come out here with a 3 rail and 3-rail 6-inch boards, and we want to go about 16 feet. So we want to go 2 bays with our 3-rail, and I didn't want that H-brace to be showing up behind the 3-rail. So I didn't want an H-brace in this area. I wanted the boards to show and not the H-brace. So when you pull the fence tight, this post wants to go in, and that's exactly what happened. When we stretched this fence, this post went in, and then the fence got really loose. So I was trying to figure out how to fix that. So I came around the top of this fence with a chain and had my tractor behind me, and I come along and I pulled this back tight. I dug about a 2-foot deep, maybe 18-inch deep hole, and I cut a post with an angle on one end, and I wedged it in there, and then I through bolted it with 2 galvanized bolts, and that kickstand keeps this post from going in. So it eliminated the H bracing that I didn't want to look at on my funnel, and it also gave a unique solution to my corners. Okay folks, so that's how Deb and I built this fence. We designed it ourselves, we PowerPointed it out, we did a list of materials and went and got the materials ourselves. We drilled the holes, we put in the posts, we put up the fence wire, we did the gate, we did it all ourselves, and we're quite proud of it. It was
And we're still married.
Yeah, we're still married.
The one thing I would add though would be, don't be afraid to tackle a project. We look at this project now and it looks overwhelming to us, but we did it. We didn't know what we were doing, but we got through it. It looks amazing and we're proud of it. And we have that pride and that happiness every time we look at it. So don't let a project scare you away.
Yeah, that's a really great point. So in addition to that, we probably saved $3,000 or $4,000 by doing it ourselves. And I'll tell you, every time I come over top of the hill to come to our property, I'm really impressed with our fence. So I'm glad we did it ourselves. I'm glad we stuck to our guns. And if you can do something, do it, research it, YouTube it. If we can do it, you can do it. Hopefully this video gave you some ideas for fencing your property. If you like this video, please click subscribe, please click like, and we'll see you on the next one.
Take care.
Take care, y'all.